Oi oi, this is a follow-up to the last video I made on the game UAYEB, so if you haven't seen that one, watch that before this, otherwise not much of this is gonna make sense. Anyway, when I finished recording that, this stuff for the last video, I'd put in maybe 5 or 6 hours into UAYEB. At this point I've put in 14, and I'm not going to continue for several reasons. But first let's talk about a few things I neglected to mention in the original video. So I showed this at the end of the first video during the little credits bit. You do get a car in this game, and the car is pretty good. Its physics are a little wonky, but it's fine. It allows you to get around a lot faster, and it's a big convenience. I'm very glad it's in the game. Also, I discovered the hard way that if you open the menu while driving the car will continue to drive, as you can see here.
And you know what? You can make it bigger, in case I show up too.
Yeah, just if you do play this game for whatever reason, be wary of that. Anyway, the reason I didn't mention the car in the original video was because I got it right around when I stopped playing, and I thought I didn't have too much to say about it. But yeah, having played more, I can say that it's a nice little addition to the game, although it is weird. It's certainly weird. Something else that I didn't mention in the first video is the map that the game provides. It's, well, it's terrible. It shows you roughly where you are, but not really, and whenever you're told to find something on the map, the thing you're looking for is never where it says it is, and it's always a little bit away. Now this becomes extremely inconvenient, because after every artifact you find, you get sent a location for a clue to find the next artifact. And these are always in the little city area. Now the map will always show you that the clue is in one of the buildings, but it's never in the building it says it is. It's always to the side or across the street or around the corner. And that wouldn't be so bad if all of the buildings weren't the same. There are like 3 different house layouts, and then they just copy and paste it over and over again. So whenever you go into a house, it seems like you've gone into it before. And of course, every time you do go into a house, you have to pick the lock, because they're all locked, because I guess the post-apocalypse is very safe. And each time you do that, you have to use iron and carbon, and there's only so much of that around. Sure, it does respawn after a while, but still, that's just tedious. And when you do get into the buildings, and even if it's the right one, the clue you're looking for is always hidden. So not only is the map a massive inconvenience, but the level design is also completely backwards, and the thing you're looking for is hidden in the weirdest places. I said a lot in the last video that I really liked this game. That was more on a conceptual level. The more I've played of it, the less I'm enjoying it, because it gets really weird. Not only do you have the inconveniences like the map and the interaction issues I had in the first video, but now I can talk about the difficulty. The difficulty really takes a turn after the second or third artifact you find. Like, it reaches a point where when you go into these caves or, you know, whatever else, these Mayan shrines, whatever, everything tries to kill you. Absolutely everything. Like this one here, you have to find the right path that's looming over this massive pit of death. And every so often the thing you're standing on will just collapse. And when you do get there, the pool of water that you find is full of spikes. You have to find this perfect little path through the spikes, or risk going through the mosquitoes. And then when you do pick up the artifact, more spikes appear after that. This is the problem with a one-man development team. I praised him in the last video for it, but the more I've played, the more I start to see the weaknesses of it. When you're a one-person team, you start to get used to your own design. When you test it, you don't experience it with fresh eyes. So when he was testing this area, I'm sure he thought this was fine, because he knew exactly what to expect. He knew exactly how it was intended to be played, so he would have tested it that way. But for a new player like myself, this is so user-unfriendly, it's insane. The difficulty is absolutely absurd. If he'd had a few different people to test it, maybe it would have been a bit better, but then again, I don't know. God, this game's weird. Gonna take a brief little intermission here to say that, good lord, the post-apocalypse is humid. Look at this. Good lord, it's hard enough to get around in this game, especially in the desert. With the weird map and the very bleak landscape, it gets pretty hard to get around. When you add this level of fog, which, by the way, I didn't think was possible in a desert in Central America, but whatever, what do I know? When you add that fog, it gets even harder. And this fog stayed around for some time as well. I mean, it did show off the CryEngine's lighting, which is nice. But aside from that, why is it here? Why did this happen? It's so inconvenient. That's a lot of the mechanics in this game really boil down to a massive player inconvenience. I don't know if the game creator thought that equated challenge, but it just equates frustration. That's all it is. I want to talk about this puzzle, this one right here. To access this puzzle, you have to do one of the most frustrating things ever, which is, it's hard to describe what you have to do. Flick these switches so that these platforms move in the right way, and make sure the platforms don't fall out of sync with each other so you can jump from one to the other without falling onto the spike pits. I'm not going to explain it, because the puzzle at the end is way worse. So the puzzle itself, it's one of these memory tests, where it shows you a bunch of different things and you have to do the same things over and over again. Whatever, that's fine. When I saw it, I thought, oh, I'll only have to do this once. That's a good puzzle, I enjoy that. But no, you have to do it 7 times! And it's so hard. The first one's easy, because it just does a little circle around the thing, whatever. Oh my god, this is one of the hardest puzzles I've ever had to do. I had to write it down, I had to look up a walkthrough to try and get this done, because my memory's not great, my short-term memory's trash. And you know, even with a walkthrough, it's hard. But yeah, this goes back to what I said about the problems with a one-man development team. He will have made this puzzle, and he would have thought, oh, this is too easy, I have to do it again. But he only thought it was too easy because he'd already done it. He was the one who made it. Of course it was too easy. There are several more things like that in the game, and there's probably several more ahead of me as well, but again, I'm probably not going to finish the game because, you know, at first this game was a sort of exercise in, you know, me enjoying a weird game. That's fine, I've done that before. And then once I had finished the first video, it turned into something of a chore, because the things got really difficult, and it got harder to get around and maneuver the world. But at this point, it's like I'm punishing myself, and I don't know why. I must have been terrible in a past life, because god damn it, having to do that puzzle, I nearly had a stroke. But like I said in the last video, the guy who made this game has a lot of potential, and I am looking forward to seeing what he does next, because I think if he manages to apply himself, and maybe get some professional testing done on his games before he releases them, he could make something great. I genuinely believe that. I think he's working on a sequel to UAYEB, so let's see, I'll probably play that when it comes out as well. Some of the areas in the game only open up at certain times during the day, which I quite like, that's a nice little mechanic. But there's one of them that really confuses me, and that's for the 8th artifact. It opens up at between the hours of midnight and I think 2 AM. And that is fine, you know, whatever. Or at least it would be fine if it wasn't a driving puzzle. And not only that, but it's a very dangerous off-road mountain driving puzzle. So you're, you know, fully expected to be able to drive around in very poor lighting over these massive gaps and falls and collapsing bridges and whatnot. It's, again, I think the creator thought this would be a nice challenge, but instead it's a massive inconvenience, because I would see this puzzle being very entertaining if I could do it during a time where I could actually see anything. That would make it far better. But no, again, it's, I think the creator just has a clouded judgment of what constitutes a challenge and what constitutes an inconvenience, and the lines blur all the time in this game. Okay, now let's talk about the story of UAYEB. Now, I covered a few points in the last video, but I did kind of leave it open, and I'll be honest, I was curious to see what would happen next in the story, because it's a pretty, you know, unique setup they gave us. And there are a few questions that I wanted answered, you know, why are we collecting these artifacts? Who was that creepy voice man that trapped us? Hello. Who are these exploding boys, etc. So I'm gonna run through a few bullet points I've made regarding the rest of the story and the parts I missed. So UAYEB and Joanna's the one with the really flat and dull voice. They have some of the most awkward flirting I've ever heard.
And you know what? You can make it bigger in case I show up too.
The creepy voice you heard?
Hello.
Yeah, you never hear that again. It's never followed up on. And then for the rest of the story, you just collect the 20 artifacts, and then you're told to go to an island so you can escape somewhere else. When you go to the island, Joanna tells UAYEB that, oh no, we had a son together once, and he's one of the exploding boys. Uh-oh, you may have killed my son. Whoops. If they'd said at the beginning of the game, like, oh, UAYEB has a son, and he might be out there, and at the end they're like, oh, you might have killed him, that would have been a good twist. But they throw it literally right before the end credits. Well, the second end credits, because there's 2 of them. It's just another confusing aspect of an already confusing game. In any case, yeah, that's how the story of UAYEB ends. You may or may not have killed your son, and then you go on a boat and you go to Mexico. I'm looking forward to part 2. Now, I didn't outwardly say whether or not I'd recommend the game in the first episode, and I still don't really know. I would be amazed if any of you played this game and decided to finish it, because honestly it gets so tedious and difficult. But at the same time, it's kind of, it's a fun thing to see this game made by one guy, and its many oddities that it has to offer. So I don't know, if you see it on a sale, maybe pick it up, but if you're looking for a good puzzle adventure game, there are many others out there. And in any case, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to join me next time, where I'll be looking at another weird game. This time it's about Aztecs. So, yeah. Goodbye.